Welcome, everyone. My name is Maureen Antunes, president of the Spark Computer Graphics Society and the Vancouver ACM SIGGRAPH chapter. And I want to welcome you to this session. We are going to be taking a deep dive into the SVP, the Student Volunteer Subcommittee, and the program, and what is all involved with being a student volunteer at SIGGRAPH, which is very exciting. Before we start, I want to thank our sponsors who allow us to be able to do these events, these learning sessions. Our TERABYTE sponsor, Creative BC, our KILOBYTE sponsors, Industrial Light and Magic, Sony Pictures, Imageworks, and WildBrain Studios. Our Byte sponsors, BCIT, the Little Dev Shop and Vancouver Film School, and our partner, ACM SIGGRAPH, and of course, the organizers, us, the Spark Computer Graphics Society, and the Vancouver ACM SIGGRAPH chapter. Now that everything, all of the house cleaning things are out of the way, I want to take a minute to introduce today's guest, who is going to be taking us through this entire thing. Amira Malcom, welcome.
Hi. Hi, everybody. I'm Amira Malcom. I am the Student Volunteer Subcommittee Chair for 2025. I'm so excited to be in Vancouver this year since it was one of my first years of being a student volunteer. I started in 2017, and I believe that conference was in LA, but I think the Vancouver conference was like the first time that I traveled for SIGGRAPH, and it was still such a new experience because I kind of came from the fine art side instead of animation. So the first year was like, what are these words? What is happening? What have I gotten myself into? But over the years, just kind of staying involved has been so rewarding. And so being able to be the chair this year is a really exciting opportunity.
That's amazing. I'm going to ask you a little bit more about your trip, your experience through SIGGRAPH. Maybe we'll talk about that at the end, because you are a perfect example of what can happen to somebody when they become a student volunteer and then end up in a leadership position.
Yeah, absolutely.
So why don't you kick it off? Why don't you share with us you have a presentation on the program and what's all involved, which I think will be really great for folks that might have some questions.
So this presentation is just gonna overview what the student volunteer experience kind of entails and more details about how to apply. So a lot of that information is going to be covered here, as well as some tips and tricks on how to improve your application. So just looking at the 2025 year, we are going to be in Vancouver, and the conference is going to be from August 10th to the 14th. So those are going to be our days of activation. Starting off with just a couple of photos from a previous SIGGRAPH. It kind of shows like a lot of the different things that student volunteers and attendees can get into, including meeting Corky Cam, who this dog visits every single year. I love seeing her and her handler kind of run around the conference, but there are also other opportunities like the VR theater, being able to see some special presentations like the one pictured for Weta with the Batman, and also just a lot of other opportunities like Real Time Live, being able to talk with not only folks from the org, but also folks from some of the bigger animation houses as well. So there's a lot of opportunity at the conference. There is a short video that I want to show you that kind of goes over SIGGRAPH 2024. And so I'll just play this really quickly to kind of give you a primer on what the conference looks like and how that kind of goes. So looking at the inspiration part of the conference, like this is probably one of the bigger events that students have attended before. A lot of people are traveling from home, maybe for the first time. And so it's really important to kind of center in on the fact that ACM SIGGRAPH is not only a special interest group within ACM, but it's a community and it's a family. So being able to gather in Vancouver this year is going to be a great opportunity to continue to build that and bring more people from so many diverse backgrounds into the fold within the SVSC. So looking into like the different aspects of SIGGRAPH, there are so many things that the conference covers. So this list of programs and events goes over everything from the art gallery, where I kind of got started, to games, frontiers, the immersive pavilion. There are also opportunities for poster presentations and technical papers. So it's a huge mix of art and science, being able to have educators and practitioners talking and exchanging information. And as I mentioned earlier, I came to SIGGRAPH from a fine art background, since my undergrad was focused on photography and live action film production. So coming into it from the arts and design side was a great way for me to kind of get my feet wet and move more into new technologies, production and animation, and be able to continue the work that I'm doing right now in research and education. So there are so many different entry points, and I think it's so important to talk about that, because a lot of students might feel like, oh, well, I don't have a background in this type of technology, or I haven't tried doing this before, and so I don't like have a place in the ecosystem yet. Being an SV is like such a starting point, and it's an opportunity to learn not only from the industry leaders that are able to attend, but from other student volunteers as well. So there's opportunities abound. So kind of going back to the types of people that are typically involved in the conference and within our team for student volunteers. We have artists, we have technologists, engineers, 3D modelers, stop motion animators, people from all walks of life and all sorts of academic backgrounds are a part of our community. So if you're interested in any of these areas or looking into starting something new, this is a great opportunity to not only be able to get involved on the conference side, but to be able to see if there's a place for you in the industry as well. So there's another video that I want to show that gets a little more into the student volunteer experience. So our student volunteers are kind of like the lifeblood of the conference. We typically have between 300 and 400 students around for the conference week, and they do everything from checking badges at doors, being able to assist presenters with their presentations, being able to talk to attendees and answer their questions. Again, just because we have such a multicultural community that spans language, time zones, all sorts of cultural beliefs and things like that, it's so important that we're able to kind of be that bridge to be able to help the conference run. So I'll show you this video real quick and then we'll move on.
Hello, my name is Sarah Rust, and I'm the Student Volunteers Chair for SIGGRAPH 2020 in Washington, D.C. The SIGGRAPH 2020 Student Volunteers Program will build a diverse team of passionate, hardworking students that support the conference. Student volunteers develop and demonstrate communication and leadership skills while expanding professional networks and making lifelong connections. As a thank you for conference support, students receive complimentary full conference registration, special perks, and the opportunity to work alongside researchers, educators, and industry leaders. If you are a motivated, enthusiastic student who enjoys helping others, working with exceptional and supportive team members, and contributing to the future of computer graphics and interactive techniques, we want you on our team. Apply to the Student Volunteers Program and join us at SIGGRAPH 2020 in Washington, D.C.
For student volunteers, it's a pretty easy decision on whether or not you want to be involved with the conference. Are you passionate about the industry? Are you interested in new technologies and innovation? Are you ready to network? And are you up for an amazingly awesome week-long adventure? And it is an adventure, and it's a marathon, not a sprint. But absolutely, you should apply to be a SIGGRAPH student volunteer. So what does it really mean to be a SIGGRAPH student volunteer? Our student volunteers, also known as SVs, so you'll hear me talk about SVs and TLs, and I'll get into a little more of that later. So as a student volunteer, the work that we do really does make the conference possible. Our other program chairs are working so hard to make sure that the offerings that we have this year are dynamic and impressive and are able to be reached by so many different people, but our student volunteers are kind of the gears that help the machine to run. So it's a super important job, and we really value everybody that applies to be a part of our community. So student volunteers generally throughout the week serve about 25 hours of time in shifts. So that can be a pre-conference shift helping out with merchandise, or throughout the conference having some responsibilities within the different venues that I mentioned earlier. So there's a lot of different ways to get involved, and every day is completely different. Some things that students can look forward to on site are monitoring doors, taking tickets, providing general assistance for attendees and things like that. When it comes to some of the more premier events like the chapters party or the electronic theater and things like that, our student volunteers are a part of that process as well. So even if you might not have time off shift to attend something, your shift might overlap with an event that you want to attend anyway. So you'll have a chance to kind of look in and see those programs that you might not have had time to attend otherwise. And you might be thinking, this sounds like a lot of work. What do we kind of get in return? What are the benefits of being a student volunteer? So I've talked a lot about community, which for me has been a huge part of why I continue to come back to SIGGRAPH. But things that we do offer that also don't hurt are our student volunteers are able to receive the highest level of conference registration. So you're able to access all parts of the conference that anybody who paid for a full price ticket would be able to enjoy. So there are also special opportunities for real reviews, portfolio sessions. We do also offer special sessions for our student volunteers. And so we've had historically companies like Disney, DreamWorks, Sony, they come in and provide exclusive content for our student volunteers. And so that's definitely something to look forward to as well. There are also a ton of networking opportunities and a lot of other surprises that we're working on for this year. So if you apply, stay tuned for some more of that information. So the only way to become a student volunteer is to fill out our application. And the link will be posted later on in the presentation, but in case you want to get started right now, it's sv.siggraph.org. And what you'll need to provide is proof of enrollment at your school, 2 references that will be able to kind of vouch for your skills, and then the 3 essay questions. I think the essay questions are kind of what makes students nervous about applying, because again, I think it's easy to think that because someone may not come from an animation background, or because they might not have the experience that they think they need to be able to be successful in this role. What we're looking for are people that are enthusiastic, who are problem solvers, and who are ready to learn. So these essay questions go over your motivation to be a student volunteer, some experience that helps you to interact with others from different cultures, and then also actions that you've taken to maybe resolve a difficult situation. As I mentioned before, the conference is a large and kind of stressful environment at some times, so being able to roll with the punches is really important. We also offer some limited financial assistance. So the application for that is in the SV application as well. So if you're looking to hopefully, if you're looking to get some assistance with your travel to the conference, that's something that on an availability basis we're able to provide. So make sure to show your effort and your thought and your excitement into these essays, because that is what is going to be juried. So these essays are ultimately what's going to get you into the position. So when you think about an application, you might be thinking, how do I stand out? What are some things that I can include to make sure that they know that I'm like an excellent candidate, or that I am really passionate about the role? What definitely helps is having experience with SIGGRAPH before. So if you have a local or a student chapter that you're involved with, definitely let us know and tell us about the things that you've been able to accomplish in those opportunities. Any kind of customer service or volunteer opportunities are something that you're going to want to highlight as well. And also just making sure to start your application early, take the time to actually read through your answers, and maybe have a friend do like a spell check for you to make sure that you're presenting yourself in the best light possible. So our important dates for the student volunteer application cycle are coming up. Our student volunteer applications are due on Friday, the 28th of 2025. So that's going to be this upcoming Friday. And again, the conference dates are going to be from the 10th of August to the 14th. Our student volunteers need to be on site on the 9th, which is the day before the conference, for orientation. But a lot more of that information is available on our sub-site through the conference. So if you're able to Google SIGGRAPH 2025 and go to the student volunteer page, there's a lot more information about not only what you can include in your application, but other things about expectations for on-site as well. So our social media team also works hard to make sure that we're able to get information out about not only applications, but other opportunities to help out on our team. So please feel free to follow us on Facebook and Instagram. So on Facebook, we're at SIGGRAPH Student Volunteers, and then on Instagram, we're at SIGGRAPH SV. And then also, if you are posting information through the conference, don't forget to tag us with hashtag SIGGRAPH 2025 and hashtag proud to be SV. So this is your opportunity to be a student volunteer for 2025. The application is located online at sv.siggraph.org. And again, that deadline for our student volunteer applications is the 25th of February. So make sure to get your applications in on time, and I look forward to reviewing all your submissions.
Thanks for that very thorough presentation, Amira. That's fantastic. And it's a great opportunity for folks to get more of an insight into what goes into becoming a student volunteer and what that entails. I have actually a couple of other questions for you. And I wanted to start by asking you about your experience. You talk a little bit about, when we think of SIGGRAPH, we think technical, like this is, it's creative, but it's also like a very technical thing. But like
Yeah.
you mentioned that your experience is actually from the artistic side of things. And over the years, I mean, you've been now with the organization for what, like almost 10 years?
That's so scary. It's also so true though. So I started in 2017 because I had a student chapter on my campus at Indiana University, Indianapolis. So shout out to my Hoosiers. But a friend was majoring in the school at the time. I had been majoring in communications and hadn't switched over to media arts and science yet. But I was so inspired by all of the content that I saw. And it also helped that Big Hero 6 had just come out. And I was like, okay, stop the presses. I'm becoming an animator. What do I need to do to get in this industry? Who do I need to talk to? Whose door do I need to knock on? So at first, I wasn't really sure about applying to go to the conference just because at the time my experience was mostly in, again, photography and live action film production. So I was like, this is an animation conference. Am I gonna be able to fit in? Like, how is that gonna work? But I was encouraged by my faculty and some of my other friends who were applying. So that got me to my first conference in LA in 2017. And an it was an eventful week. Being able to get exposure to all different parts of the animation process. I love storytelling. So being able to go to the production sessions, looking at the art gallery, looking at some of the content in the art papers really helped me to understand how all of these pieces kind of fit together and how I could learn more and really be able to become more involved, which is what encouraged me to apply the next year to become a student volunteer again in Vancouver. And so I didn't apply to be a TL the next year because I was graduating, but I just kind of stayed in touch. I don't believe so. I was really focused on staying in touch because I wanted to stay involved with the organization, with the conference. And so I was able to the next year, it's called the Conference Apprentice Program now, but previously it was called the XSV program. So if you had been an SV and you weren't eligible anymore, then you would be able to help out on a subcommittee for the conference. So very much how I'm the chair right now and I have people that are helping me out on my team. I was someone that was helping somebody else to run their part of the conference, which was the art gallery, which was my home base, my bread and butter. And being able to work with the SVs in that capacity was really awesome. I always love the energy that SVs bring to the conference, and being able to kind of just tap into that was something that I really looked forward to. So from there, I moved on to my role on the chapters committee, where I am still currently serving as our North American professional chapters liaison. So I actually work with Marina quite a bit to be able to facilitate some of the events that go on in Vancouver as well. And just recently, our conference chair was able to reach out to me and ask if I was interested in chairing the student volunteer program. And having worked with students throughout the entire process, being in grad school now and working with students, it's really something that I was looking forward to. And it's definitely a welcome challenge and learning experience.
You mentioned TLs. Can you talk a little bit about that? Who these people are and
Who are they?
how you get there?
Yes. So after you volunteer to be a student volunteer, the next year you can apply to be a team leader. And so a team leader is still under the student volunteer umbrella. They just have a little bit more responsibility as far as being able to help navigate the conference space, being able to take student volunteers to their shifts around the convention center, and also kind of just being a home base as well, just because our student volunteer committee, our team is working really hard to manage like a lot of high level things, but our SVs and TLs are really our boots on the ground. So being able to have someone that's kind of an intermediary, somebody who can have kind of like a mentorship kind of vibe is what's is really important to the student volunteer experience, but also really helpful on the other side as well, because we're able to hear things that are going on in the conference space and kind of preempt and pre-plan for a lot of things that are going on. So being a TL is kind of a step up from being a student volunteer, but it's a great way to continue to stay involved and to learn more about the committee and the work as well.
Can you kind of walk us through what your day would look like as a student volunteer?
Oh
So you show
goodness.
up in the morning,
You wake
what
up
time are you
super
expected to
early.
be there? Like, what does your day look like?
That's a really good question. I think it depends a lot on how your shifts are kind of laid out. So if you had, say, an early morning shift, you might wake up early in the morning, make sure you eat breakfast, eat food and drink water. I think being we have to say this so many times because it is an environment where you're doing a lot of walking, you're focusing on a lot of things at the same time, and being able to take care of yourself is such an important part of that process so that you're able to do your best work throughout the week. But to answer your question, wake up, eat breakfast, either walk, Uber in Vancouver. There's probably more people that might be able to take the train to the convention center, which is fantastic. Um, so yeah, being able to show up to the convention center, be showing up to the SV office and checking in, being able to check in with your TLs, and then maybe your first shift of the day is in the art gallery. So you and your TL, along with the rest of your group, is going to walk over there, and then the chair of that part of the conference will kind of orient you to the space, give you the facts and information that you need to be able to share with attendees. And so you'll be able to interact with attendees, talk to other people for maybe shifts are typically about 2.5 hours. So after that, you might have time to go grab lunch, go see a talk, hang out with your friends, and then go to another shift later on in the day, which might end up being the electronic theater. So you would be able to kind of have a place in the auditorium to make sure, one, that we're maintaining our responsibility to make sure that um, people aren't recording exclusive content and things of that nature, but you also kind of get to catch the vibes of the situation and see some work that you might not have had the opportunity to see otherwise. There's also a lot of opportunities, especially in Vancouver, to hang out like after the conference is over with for the day. So there are opportunities to go to things like the chapters party or any of the other industry mixers that are going on throughout the week. So those are definitely opportunities to look for as well.
That's awesome. So how many shifts can student volunteers expect to have a day? Is it 2 shifts, 1 shift, 3 shifts? Does it rate change?
It it can change, and I think it's also important to note that SVs are able to swap shifts with other volunteers. If, for example, like I remember when I don't think I had a shift at the time, but it was the talk for Into the Spider-Verse, and this was my one thing that I had to go to for the conference. So I made sure that I had swapped any shifts that I had for that day, and so I was able to attend the things that I wanted to go to. I'm losing track of your question. You were asking me how many shifts a day. It really depends, but it's also something that you can kind of navigate if you work with your fellow SVs and also stay in contact with our team about like any any extenuating circumstances or other needs that you have. So I would say maybe a normal day would have 2 shifts. So you would have a morning shift maybe, and then have time to have lunch and do something else later on in the day. Or if you have back-to-back shifts, our team leaders, again, with that level of responsibility, are able to make sure that people are getting breaks, that they have time to eat and drink water, have rest, and be able to kind of check in with a lot of the interactions that we have with attendees and things like that. So it really varies from day to day and throughout the conference as well.
If you have like a specific interest, so let's say like you come from a filmmaking background and you want to, or an artistic background, let's say, and you want to work specifically in the art gallery, like can
Mm.
you request that, or is that just something that you work with your other SVs to make sure that if that is the area that you love, maybe you switch your shifts to make sure that you cover that?
That's a really good question. And I think shift swapping is definitely a way to accommodate those wants. Unfortunately, with so many volunteers on site, we can't accommodate everybody's first choice for things that they want to do, but it's also kind of a blessing because you're able to really see some things that you may not have chosen to be a part of, but also something that you might be really interested in. So yeah, I would say that being able to work with other SVs is really important to being able to kind of to be able to curate the experience that you want for the conference. But it's also one of the things that I think some longtime attendees will tell you is that you can never do everything. There are so many things to experience throughout the week, so many people that you can talk to, so many parties and mixers to attend. And so when I was saying earlier that it's a marathon, not a sprint, it's really easy to kind of have your eyes be bigger than your stomach as far as like, I want to do this and go to this party and go to this event and do all these things. But once it hits like 7, 8 o'clock, you're like, ooh, I might need to go to sleep so I can wake up for my shift tomorrow. So being able to manage that is also a huge part of the experience.
I think that that's part of the experience for even like regular attendees. It's the
Even
same
me,
thing.
100%, 100%.
Like you just want to see all of the things, you have to be picky.
And I think what's great about the conference too is depending on whether or not you have a membership, having access to the digital library gives you access to some of those things. So you can plan around whether or not something is recorded or whether or not if somebody else has gone to the talk and can take notes for you. I have been the person in the group chat that's like, hey, is anybody going to this talk? Have you taken notes? Can I see like what people were talking about? So yeah, it's a great way to kind of get a look into all different parts of the conference.
Can you share a little bit of insight into like sort of the timeline? So you apply, the deadline to apply is this year's February the 28th. So you send
Mhm.
in your application. When can you expect to find out the result? And then from there, I'm wondering like what happens leading up to the conference? Because I assume everybody just doesn't show up on, August the 9th. And you have one meeting and then you're set to go. I assume there's probably some stuff that happens beforehand, like are there
There,
group chats? Are there like learning sessions? Like what's happening
luckily,
behind the scenes?
behind the scenes, yeah, luckily there is some lead up. We don't just drop people in the middle of the convention center and set them free. So for our student volunteers, those applications are juried by our team leaders. So that's another aspect of that role as well. So we're actually about to jury our team leader applications. Once they're selected, then our student volunteer applications will have been submitted so they can then jury those. And around, I would say around the middle of May, acceptances for student volunteers are going to go out. As far as interaction, we're going to be using Discord this year. And so through there, we're going to be, um, so since we're using Discord this year, we're going to be able to have like some programming prior to the conference, very much like the exclusive student sessions that we have in the conference. So it's a great opportunity for contributors. They may not be able to who may not be able to travel to Vancouver to kind of be able to do workshops, give talks, kind of create that team building environment. And so there are a couple instances of a virtual orientation, but our big in-person meeting at the conference really like locks everything in, gives other contributors to the conference a chance to come in and talk about some different aspects of the week that they should look forward to, like the chapters party, the chapters luncheon. I'm going to be talking about chapters the entire time, but also other opportunities that students have to kind of make the most of their time. So there is some virtual engagement prior to the conference, and then on site we have our training. And then throughout the week, there are opportunities for folks to ask questions to kind of get a better idea of what their responsibilities are. And that's kind of split between our team and our TLs as well, because we do depend on them to be able to kind of distribute that information as well.
So what happens like post event? Because I mean, clearly you stayed connected because you had a chapter where you were in Vancouver. Folks are lucky because there is a chapter here and we're quite active. But there are folks that are traveling or might be, interested in volunteering and do volunteer that after the fact, like what happens afterwards? Like how do you stay connected to the volunteers other than just, exchanging your phone number with, some friend that you just met? How does the team kind of stay connected if there's a way to do that? And, if you don't have SIGGRAPH in your area, what's your next step?
What do you do? These are real questions. And first
These
of
are
all,
real questions.
business card culture is actually so huge in the student volunteer community, which I love because it shows like everybody's different personality is shown like through their illustration style or other things that they've included in those things. So that's always great to see. So yeah, being able to network with other SVs is a huge way to stay connected because you can kind of build your own it's a DIY ecosystem. You can kind of build your team of Avengers, of people that you'll be reaching out to in the middle of the night when your animation isn't working and things like that. But being able to stay involved, I think a lot of that is being able to stay involved with the leadership at the time. I mean, when I was a student volunteer, Shout out to Corinne Price. She was so helpful in helping me to be able to stay involved and get the opportunities that I had. And it was really just going up to her and saying like, hey, I've been a student volunteer. I really enjoyed my experience. How can I stay in touch? And even for students who maybe have graduated outside of the application, um, outside of our application deadlines, there are definitely other opportunities to get involved with the conference. So there's the Conference Apprentice Program, which I mentioned earlier, which helps with some different conference committees. So that can also give you insight into other parts of the conference. There's also the Nominations Committee, which helps to elect folks to some of the standing committees that are run year round and not just at the conference. So there are a lot of opportunities to stay involved. And I think the org in general is really eager to have a lot of new perspectives and new people coming in. So if you're interested in learning more about the org and learning more about how to stay involved, I really think it's a lot about staying in touch. It's a lot about being able to check in and also being able to interact with us online, because that hashtag proud to be SV, it's kind of like our bat signal when it comes to being able to stay connected in the student volunteer community, because you never know where people are going to end up. You never know what opportunities can kind of come up when you stay in touch with people that you've met through SIGGRAPH. So yeah, I would say like just not being afraid to reach out and being able to pursue the things that you're interested in.
That's awesome. And I will say when you're on site in Vancouver, assuming that you all make it here, which would be amazing, and actually at any of the conferences, there's always like SIGGRAPH Village is always there. There's always people there that have been with the organization for years. You can ask lots of questions and figure out how to get
We love to
involved.
answer questions.
Yeah, and maybe you want to start a chapter if you don't have one where you are, which is always really great. And there's a lot of fantastic supports for that as well, I will say. Let's talk real world for a minute. As somebody who has
Let's get real.
experience, I'm curious about, as somebody that has experience being a student volunteer, can you talk a little bit about like what is in your toolkit when you're preparing to come to like let's say like the first time that you went to SIGGRAPH in LA? Like
Mhm.
what did you pack? What did you take with you? What
Ooh,
do you
brass tacks. I love to
yeah,
talk
like
this.
give us the you've done this for, you've done this a couple of times. Like what is like in your go bag that you cannot live without at the
This is such a good
conference?
question. Um,
Because we always forget something.
Something is always forgotten, and I think that's something that is also so important about the community, because we all help each other. That the SVSE and our group, we definitely take care of our own. So being able to have somebody that you can reach out to for things is so important. But things that I have in my bag, especially for Vancouver, since I live in the United States, I got my passport. Definitely have to have a water bottle. Definitely have to have good, sturdy walking shoes that have already been broken in, because there's a lot of walking involved, a lot of um, a lot of transporting yourself around different places. In my bag, do you mean like to go or to like go through it like a day at the conference?
Both maybe.
Gotta have snacks. I usually try to keep a granola bar or something in my bag, a notebook, a pen, because a friend of mine, this is my this is one of my origin stories why I always have a pen or a marker, because a friend of mine was able to meet Pendleton Ward at the conference. If you don't know who that is, they're one of the lead people with Adventure Time and like that kind of animation sphere. And she didn't have a pen, and he was like, "Oh, well, I was going to do a drawing for you, but I guess I got to go do something else right now." And I'm just like, Bestie, I can't even imagine. So yeah. Also, one of those little charging bricks for your phone, because I'm constantly playing Pokemon Go. And if you're traveling abroad, like being able to stay in touch on WhatsApp and those things is really important. Also, you want to be able to be prepared for those photo opportunities, because I also had the opportunity to meet Jim Blinn not too long ago, and I was able to take a photo with him, which is one of my treasured memories from the conference. What else? I feel like it's not what you bring, it's what you take away. So like maybe the most essential parts of the conference are the friendships we made along the way. Also have to pack a smile and a good attitude. And yeah, yeah, just just pretend you're going on a hike, but like through like a technology forest. Yeah, I think that's a good way to I think that's a good way to talk about it.
I love it. I love it. We've covered a lot of great ground today. if folks have more questions for you, I know there isn't a lot of time left for them to apply for this year. And remember, if you miss this year, guys, there's always next year. So do not
Always.
fret. But if folks have more questions, they want to get in touch with you or somebody on the subcommittee, what's the best way to get in touch?
Yeah, that's a really great question. So again, our application website is sv.siggraph.org. So on that website, there's links to our emails and things like that. That's the best way to get in touch with our team, shouting us out on social media. If you want to get in touch with me personally, my email is amira.svsc@gmail.com. So that's amira.svsc@gmail.com. So I'll be happy to answer any questions that you have. Our communications lead is also on deck to help answer any questions about applications or eligibility, or also some other opportunities if you're not eligible for this year to be able to stay involved. Because while the SVSC and our program is a great way to get and stay involved, because you'll see a lot of people that are in some positions of leadership that have also come up through the SV program. It's not the only way to get involved, and it's not the only way to meet people and kind of ingratiate yourself into the community. So feel free to ask all of those questions as well, and we'll do our best to get you pointed in the right direction.
Awesome. Amira, thank you so much for your time today. It's been
Thank you.
really lovely talking to you. Good luck to everybody that's submitting an application. Don't forget, deadline is February the 28th. And hopefully we will see you all in Vancouver in a few months.
Yeah, hopefully I'll see you all there.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.